Now I just want to spend just a few minutes talking about the early formation of the canon or the official books of the New Testament. And some of this I've talked about in the previous lectures, but I just want to make sure that you're aware that the New Testament just didn't pop out fully written in the first century by Jesus and the apostles. It took a very long time for the official version of what we would have today came out. So in terms of the formation, I've listed here three people: Justin Martyr, Tatian, and Irenaeus. Now we've talked about Justin Martyr and Irenaeus. I haven't really talked about Tatian very much, but as I put here, he was a pupil of Justin Martyr. So, and some of this I've already talked about. In terms of what Justin contributed to the New Testament canon, I've already mentioned he ignored the Pauline epistles. Now again, we don't know if he didn't know about them or if he just didn't use them. It's unclear. He certainly included the Old Testament, and then I already talked about how he uses the Gospel of Matthew and Luke, maybe Mark, but he harmonized them. And what that means is he mixed these texts together. And I mentioned too that he barely mentions the Gospel of John. And then we get down to Tatian, who was a pupil of Justin Martyr. He actually wrote a book called the Diatessaron, or the Book of Four, and this was the four Gospels mixed into one text. So he took Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, found all the areas where they were similar, and then wrote one book using all four Gospels. And it's thought that he might have done this just for ease of reading. Instead of having four texts, and we didn't talk about this, but in the ancient world, books are handwritten. So it'd be cheaper to have one book that's a mix of four than to have four separate books. So maybe that's why he did it. We've talked about Irenaeus, the Bishop of Lyon in France. He included the Old Testament. He used all of the Pauline epistles, some of the Catholic epistles. These are the later writings under the name of Paul, but probably not Paul. And he separated out the four Gospels. Now, what I've got here, and this we've talked about before too, is the Muratorian canon. So this is, excuse me, this is found in the late 1700s, and it's thought to be one of the earlier collections, big collections of lists of the New Testament. So what I want you to do, and I've got a lot of text here, what I'd like you to do is just stop the video and read through parts of the Muratorian canon, and it also lists that the text that Christians should be reading includes the Gospels and Acts. So why don't you stop the video and then read through the rest of this. And as you can see down here, the Muratorian canon also lists of books called the Laodiceans and another one to the Alexandrians, which unfortunately we don't have today. And I mentioned when we talked about Marcion, it's possible that the Laodiceans was Ephesians, but we're not quite sure. But the Muratorian canon states that these were forged under the name of Paul. So these were letters that came out probably later. Someone put the name of Paul to them to make them official. Now this is only part of the Muratorian canon. I think the next two slides I've got part of it. Now in this slide, again, we've got a bit more of the Muratorian canon. And what I've done is I've listed some things here. So go ahead and stop the video and read through this. And as you can see, there are definitely some books that we do not use in the New Testament today. One is called the Apocalypse of Peter. And as you can see, the author of the Muratorian canon said there are some people out there who do not read this. He talks about Hermas, the shepherd of Hermas. It should be read. And then you get down to the writing of the other books that were rejected by, that were written by Marcion. Now it's important to note here that in the Muratorian canon, probably put together around 200 AD, there's no Hebrews, 1st and 2nd Peter, James, or 3rd John. And then he adds these texts, Wisdom, the Apocalypse of Peter, and the Shepherd of Hermas. So as you can see, at least up to the early 200s, there really is no official canon of writings from the New Testament. People are still trying to figure out what should be in the official list and what should be taken out.